So in this video I'm going to show you how to use the new PDF Manager command to manage data for a site project. So we're going to start off with the modeling menu, which is a rock pile menu, and we're going to go to the PDF Manager command, which again is a rock pile command. And in that command it's going to ask us which PDF we want to open. So here's the last one I looked at, so we'll just do this one, and we'll say open. And at this point it opens up our reviewer, and our reviewer has a list of all the bookmarks that were in the original PDF, and these are like the groups of sheets. So grading plan would be pages 6 to 7, and they're currently set to 100 scale. If you actually go to that page, and you can do that by looking down at the bottom here and find page 6 and 7, and in this area here, if we set the synchronizer up here, we can click on page 6 and it will change it to page 6 over here, so we can preview what we've got here. If I put this on full screen, maybe make this a little bit smaller, then over here we can see that the scale on this sheet, if I look at the scale bar, is 1 inch equals 60 feet. So we could just say go into here and just change the grading plan to be 60 scale. We don't have to do that because we can set it at the time when we do the georeferencing. If you find sheets and you don't like the names of them, so down here it says grading plan 1 of 2. If you want to rename the sheet, you can go into here and just type in, for instance, North Rev 1. And then in this one this would be South Rev 2, for example. So you can change the names of the sheets, and these names become the names of the files that we store inside TBC, which gives you a better way of finding them and tracking them because you've had a chance to rename them before you use them. Just put another hyphen in there. Okay, so now we've got 2 sheets in the grading plan that we want to work with, and you could look through all the other pages. So for example, you might want to get some information out of the typical details. You might want to grab a vicinity map from the title box here. So there's various things that we might want to do with this data. Now if you don't have these from the original file, you can just create them. You hit the plus key, type in a new name, tell it which sheets go together in the group, and that's done. If you want to add a second PDF file like a revision 2 set, you would come up here and hit the browse button and find the second revision, and that would also attach that PDF to the project, and then you can do the same thing within this. So once you've set up all your sheets and you're happy with them and you've previewed them, in the preview here you can do scale, so you can say 2 times, and then you can pan in the image here to see information at more detail if you want to, and then you can go back to 1 scale if you want to. Here you can pick the groups that you've defined. So I look at grading plans. Now there's 2 pages in here. You can see the page number I'm looking at, and then up here you can pick the pages from that list, and you can see how fast this loads the data on screen here. So you've got a way of easily managing your pages and your groups and being able to visualize the data before you use it. Once you've set everything up in here, you can then hit close. Then it goes into the georeference mode. So georeferencing of the sheet, you have a number of ways of doing it. So in here we're going to say we're working with this PDF file. If you have more than one, you pick the one you want to work with, and then within that, which group do you want to work with, and it picks the last one you were looking at, grading plan, and then you can say out of those which page do you want to look at. And at that point then it will automatically load that page into the graphics out of the way of any other data that you've selected. And so if I zoom extents there, now I've found that page on the screen. Now we're ready to do the georeferencing, and you've got 3 methods of georeferencing. Scale bar, which is using scale, orientation or rotation, and movement and positioning. And alignment is 2 points on alignment and 2 stations, and you can do plan or plan and profile sheets doing that. And then multipoint allows you to pick multiple points on a drawing, especially if it's a raster file which may have got some stretch in it. You can pick several points and type and pick their coordinate locations or enter their coordinate locations, and it will do a best fit of the plan to the points that you select, rather than just doing a straight position and scale on a single point. So you have multiple options. We're going to use scale bar here. We're going to pick the scale bar method, but you can say no change, in which case it will take the 60 scale. Fixed scale means you can type it in just here, so rather than typing it on the previous screen, you would click in here and then type in the scale, or you can go in and reference it using 2 points and a scale bar, or a distance along a known line, like a property line or something like that. So we type in the value, so it's 120 feet, that distance, and that's now scaled the drawing. It hasn't done it yet, but it will do in just a minute. And then if you have a rotation, you can rotate the sheet now, or if you decide later on you want to rotate it at the end of the digitizing and the processing of your takeoff or whatever, then you would use the update georeference function at the end, which allows you to pick up all the sheets in the project and georeference and re-reference them all to a new location, rotation, and if you want scale at that point. In this case we're just going to say we want to move the data, and I'm going to move it to a known point. So I'm going to say this point right here, because it's easy to find in both sheets, is going to go to 5,000, 2,000. And at that point now I can now decide how I want to clip this image. And the way we clip images is you pick 2 points for the rectangle. So I'm just going to say click in the rectangle here and then click on a point, zoom in on that and find that point, and then come down to the other corner and pick this point. Now if you make a mistake with that, you see the yellow rectangle showing you what it's picked, and if you zoom in on this you can see that these lines actually stop a little short of the boundary. So to get a perfect edge match, you can now go around the sheet and just clean up the edges here just by clicking on the end of a known line. And you can see we're doing vector snapping directly in here, and when we're actually positioning, don't only get vector snapping, but you can use some of the right-click COGO snaps as well while you're working, and use 2 vector points, for instance middle of point to point, if you were doing an alignment. Now once we've got the georeferencing box set up, then we just hit the georeference page command, and that will reference the first sheet and put it at that 5000, 2000 coordinate. Then it loads the second sheet ready for georeferencing. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to pick point 1 and point 2 in the second sheet to reference this. So point 1 and point 2, and then we're going to type in a scale 120. And in this case we're going to say we want to move it, and we're going to move it from the same point in this image to the same point we used before. So we're going to click on the end of this contour right here, and we're going to do 5000, 2000. And at that point, now instead of a rectangle, I'm going to use a polygon. The reason I'm going to use a polygon, you'll come to see that in just a minute. But first of all, I'm going to hit the reset button to start afresh, and I'm going to draw my polygon starting somewhere here, coming out to here, coming up over here, over to here, down to here. And you could ask, why am I doing this? Well, just give me a second and I'll explain. So we've got this irregular shape because this actual sheet fits in over here, and there's a rectangle that's duplicated between this sheet and this one, and I want to remove it, but I don't know exactly where it is until I actually get there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the georeference function. It places it and locates it, and you can see I didn't get it quite right, but at least I've now got the right number of points in this polygon to fix it. So now I'm just going to turn on my near point snap to make sure that's turned on, and then I'm just going to go to our smart edit function from the header bar here, and in the smart edit function it's going to open up, and I'm going to pick the line string edit function out of there, and I'm going to say pick the line, and I want to edit this line right here. And now I can go Shift M to turn on a little menu and pick rock grips from the menu, and now I can start grabbing this here, and I can grab this one and put it over here somewhere. Now if you don't quite know where to put it, you can drag it out the way and then come in and sort of snap it into where you want it, and then over here you can grab this grip and then move that down over here, find the black line so till you see that, and then you can edge match that in, and then go down to the bottom here and do the same thing with this corner, edge match it into the corner there, and then do the same thing with this one, just to kind of get a nice clean shape to this. And if you've got an issue up here, you could do the same thing up here. Now, so by doing that, we've precisely drawn the boundary, which means when we extract the vectors along this match line, these vectors up here are going to stop at this line, and these vectors down here are going to stop at this line. And at that point now we can close out of here, and we can go back to this command here, and we can say, now I've got the boundaries right, I'm ready for data extraction. So when I go to data extraction, I'm going to pick these 2 pages, and you see the images got clipped automatically. So if I go into here, you can see that the first image is the rectangle and the second image is clipped to that boundary that I just drew. And these boundary lines that we created, if we click on the properties of those, you'll see that they carry the boundary name. So one thing that some people ask us for is they want to be able to label these, so in which case you can go to the drafting menu and use the label by polygon, and in this case we're going to say use the PDF sheet names, put them on this layer, and select the polygons that we want to label. So you can click on each one in turn and then click on the second one, and you've just labeled those at the centroid of those 2 polygons with the name of the page. So that's kind of a neat solution here, and that name came from, if we go back into here for a second, it came from this field right here. So you can see these names here, I didn't modify these, so it's picked up these and given the name boundary at the front, so you know where they came from if you want to. So now you've got them labeled. If you want to turn those off, you can. And now we're ready to say we want to label these images here, or we want to extract the data from these images. You get, in this case, whereas in TBC you only get a choice to extract all the data, no choice, but here we can say extract solid lines, extract dashed lines, extract fills, and extract text. We can tell it we want to use the PDF layer names, and down here we've got a data extraction summary that tells me these layers all have names. It tells you the number of objects on each layer, the description of the layer, the color, and the line weight. And if you want to, you can allocate layer names which will use the color, line weight, and type of line, or you can tell it to use the source layers if they exist. So we're going to use the PDF layer. If this was a colored PDF, which it is to a point, but it's not really as colored as we would like it, we can say allocate colors, and that will override the colors of the PDF. You can also send the files directly to a single layer, which is great for revision checking, and we have a separate video covering revision checking. But in here we're going to show you use the PDF layers, put the colors as per our defined standards, put a prefix on the layers so that we know where they came from. So these come from the grading sheet, so I'm just going to put a GRDG prefix on the layer names, overwrite the line weight so we can actually see the lines on the PDF if you want to, and you can override the colors if you want to and just set them to a single color. In this case I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to hit the extract button here, and now it's extracting the line work, and you should see the first set of lines come up on the south sheet first, and that's now cropped to that boundary line that we defined, and then the second sheet is processed and those lines will crop to the same boundary, and once they're cropped to that, then we can join across the boundary for all the lines using Smart Edit in the join mode to join all those across. So now we've got our two sheets georeferenced and extracted fully automatically, and now we can do a couple of other things before we're done. So I'm just going to go into the next stage, which is image extraction, and in image extraction I'm going to say pick the title page as the page I want to look at, and it shows it to me down here, and it's not georeferenced, but it's just imported it. I can set a clipping boundary between, let's say, here and here. Let's just reset it and do it one more time. Click here to here, and then I can just click below this text here to make it extend a little bit, and if you're not happy with the way it clipped it, you can say okay, clip it to there and then come back and do it again. So you can get the clipping as you want it here, and then you can say I want to place this image over here somewhere in right field. And if you want to scale it, you can scale it by clicking a point and then a second point, and it will place that image and scale it for me. Then I can say, well, I also want to get some of the typical drawings out of this as well for my cross section, so I can use those for building my corridor model or whatever I might be doing. And in here you can apply a clipping boundary to these, so I'm going to pick top left and bottom right, and that creates it. I'm going to say don't scale it and just place this image at normal scale over here. And then do the same thing for the second sheet, so I'm going to go down here and pick this one and this one, and then I want to place it up here next to this one. And once they've been placed, you can modify them and edit them, and then you can change the sheet, so you can go to the second set of sheets here and grab another set of images out of that sheet. So again, I'm just going to go to clipping boundary and again pick this one and this one, and then I want to place those up here somewhere. So again, you can take any amount of detail from these sheets. The other thing that this allows us to do is if you get a sort of typical detail that might have a cul-de-sac detail or an intersection detail, and maybe you've got 2 or 3 details on the same sheet and you want to georeference those little pieces off the same sheet into here, this allows you to do, when we're doing the georeferencing, it allows us to do georeference the whole page or georeference individual extracts, and then you can pick out a polygon boundary around each of the extracts and then place and rotate those little extracts at different scales into position over the top of the original plans and use those to supplement the detail in the master grading plan. And then at the end of the whole process here, should you decide that this is all in the wrong place, you won the bid, this was done in the local coordinate system because you didn't have any control at that point, and now you want to move the whole thing into position, we turn on all the data, and at that point we can then say go to the update georeference function here. And in the update georeference we can say pick all the sheets and then pick all the data, and once we've picked all the data we can then say we want to move that data from a coordinate. So I'm going to say let's move it from that start coordinate that we used earlier on, so 5000, 2000, and let's say we know that coordinate should be, let's say 695.364.234, comma 487.443.215, and we're happy with all that, and we can hit the apply button, and that's going to move all of the sheets, all of the images, and all of the extracted line work, all of your imported CAD data, any text that you've added, any line work that you've digitized or drawn, all of that information gets picked up and all moved at the same time in a single step, and now that stuff is all up here in the right coordinate space. Sorry, this one down here is in the right coordinate space here. You can see these are the coordinates here, and you've got the data is all extracted and all being placed in the right place, and we're ready to go and use that information for construction. So if we build a surface model from this data in local coordinates, and now we've moved it into global national state plane coordinates, at that point now we could take that surface model and put it on the machines and use it for rough grading. We could use it for rough staking. Even though it's come from a PDF, it's good enough to get your rough grade stakes in the ground. And then once you've got the machines rolling, you can then go finish up your model from the CAD data that you've now been provided with, overlay that on top of this, or build it in a separate file and reference this one in as a reference, and then you've got all the information you need for the project to actually go into field operation stage and get moving. So the benefit of PDF Manager is there are huge benefits to it for site construction. Same thing for highways construction. Instead of using the coordinate scale bar method, we would use the alignment based method for doing it. That'll be a separate video that you can watch in your own time. I'll post it here as well shortly. And once you've got that, you can see pretty much all of the functionality here that we have and the sophistication of it. It's faster, simpler, better workflow, more options for scaling, more options for positioning and rotating. It's faster for alignment based. We're putting image boundaries on of the right shape that crops the line work to match lines. That means you're going to get faster work downstream because you've got everything that would join up across those match lines. So there's a huge amount of benefits. In time trials on an alignment project, we were 57% faster than Trimble, or two and a quarter times faster than Trimble standard functionality for laying out plan sheets on alignment. But the big kicker on that one is if you have to do a takeoff and you have to extract that line work from the PDF, we are hundreds of times faster than Trimble because we crop all the line work to the image boundaries and we're ready for takeoff almost immediately once you get into that. The other thing is the way we set up the layers, the colors, the line styles and everything in the drawings means it's easier and faster to get into the takeoff process using our next set of tools, which would be Smart Edit, the digitizing function, which is takeoff lines, or our Smart Elevate function, which is for elevating all of the data. So these tools go together to give you like a 4 or 5 step process. Yes, you still need a few other tools around it, but the big 5 are what you use pretty much all the time for building your projects with Rockpile. So, and then you get into the takeoff process or your final modeling and your delivery using standard TBC tools. But we believe that Rockpile's tools are going to give you massive productivity gain, especially this one. If you try to do the same thing in TBC, I can almost guarantee what we just did in 10 minutes would take you best part of 2 or 3 hours to do the same thing. And we think that's going to be a significant benefit to you, especially at takeoff level, but also when you're preparing models for machine control. Building all the PDFs into the project is a fundamental thing you do for being able to reference all the data together. So we think this is a really powerful tool, and we think it's going to be something that's useful for every construction customer using Trimble Business Center. Thanks for your time and thanks for your interest.